And we're live. Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. My name is Melissa. I'm your host today. And joining us, we have Danielle Addisner and Alex Russo at Ripley's Aquarium of Canada. And so I'm just going to hand it over to them because they are starting their feeding of their spotted eagle rays. So Danielle, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having us here. And we have Andrew in the water already. Andrew, give us a big wave. Awesome. So today we are feeding the spotted eagle rays, which one of them is coming up right now. Just going to get a better angle. As you can see, the spotted ones are quite a bit different than our cownose rays, as they do have the white spots on the top of their back. And all three of them are up right now, as they do know it is food time, which is the only reason I ever roll out of bed, because of food. So these animals do absolutely love their food. And today we do have a wide variety of food for them. So in Andrew's hand, he does have a little clam, and that is a live clam for, thank you, Andrew, for the spotted eagle rays to eat. And then he also has some shrimp and some squid, which you'll see them eating. You might wonder how a spotted eagle ray can eat a clam. Well, instead of having cutting teeth like we do at the front of our mouth, they have more like crushing teeth like we do at the back of our mouth. So they can actually have such strong teeth that we have to feed them live clam to make sure that their teeth are nice and healthy. And one of the things the divers always tell me is they can hear the stingrays chomp down on their clams and break them. And then there's a whole bunch of shards of all those shells at the bottom of the habitat, which also add into the rocks that we have there anyway. So we do have 3 spotted eagle rays in this habitat. The one that you see in the frame right now, that is our youngest and smallest stingray. He is close to 5 years old, just over 5. And he was actually born at one of our other aquariums. So he was born in Gatlinburg, so he has a birthday, and we know exactly how old he is. This one is our oldest stingray. We don't know how old she is exactly, but we're pretty sure she just matured, and she is close to 50 pounds. So she's pretty heavy, and she's our biggest stingray, and they can get even larger than that. All 3 of ours are very young. And the third one I can see coming up in a moment, and he's middle in between those 2 sizes and ages. So we're pretty sure he's not mature yet, but he will be soon. So this is our in-between male. So we don't have formal names for our stingrays, but we call her the female, and we call him right over here big male, and then the other one is little male. So we always know which one's which. And you might wonder how I can easily tell apart these 3 stingrays. Well, the easiest way is their size is very different, but if you weren't going to go by their size, their spots are different on their bodies. So for this animal, if you were to take a picture of just the top of their back, you could compare that spot pattern to all other spotted eagle rays and tell individuals apart. So if you were in the natural habitat and you saw one of these and you got a picture, you could send it into a website and they could ID each and every individual of this animal, because all of their spots will be different. Oh, all 3 are together. Oh yes, and Andrew is definitely in the splash zone. So you might notice that he has a pipe on his hand, and that is not to protect his fingers from being bit, because he is hand feeding them. They actually have to touch the pipe in order to get a food reward. So that is positive reinforcement for this good behavior, so that they are much more comfortable with us. They get a little bit of extra enrichment in their lives, so they have a little bit more things to look forward to, so we can make sure that their minds are always occupied, as they are quite intelligent. And then we also make sure that these animals can come to us when we need to do procedures. So most often procedures means we have to trim their barbs. So these animals, they have stinging barbs that are on the top of their tail, and all of our spotted eagle rays actually have 2. And we have to trim those down. And we also have to figure out how much they weigh and if they are growing well. So we can weigh them, we can draw blood from them, anything like that. And the more comfortable they are with us, the easier those tasks are on not only us, but also the animals, which we don't want to make them have a negative experience at our aquarium. We want them to have a very positive experience here. And the other positive aspect to their experience is that we touch them when we feed them. So they come around to get touched by all of the guests, because they absolutely love the interaction with guests. So Andrew has his container filled with food, and in the container there are divisions. So there's one spot where, oh, thank you, Andrew. There's one spot that is bigger, and that's for the female, and then the other spots are for the 2 smaller males. So each of them gets a different amount of food, and that's how we know who's getting what, because they are in those separate divisions. And the main reason for them having different amounts of food is they are different sizes. So just like you, if you have a younger or older brother or sister, though they might eat a different amount of food than you do, just because of your size and what your appetite is. And we don't ever want to overfeed our animals because that is not healthy for them. Yes, our animals don't hunt like they would in the wild, but we still feed them the same amount of food they would normally eat in the wild, but on a more consistent basis so they never go hungry. Most animals in the wild get to a point where they are actually hungry because hunting is a lot of extra effort. So in order for them to hunt in the wild, obviously there isn't an Andrew to feed them in the wild all the time. So they use their snout. So when one of them comes back, you take a good look at their snout. It's unique compared to most other stingrays, and that's how they got their name Eagle Ray. So they have a pointed snout, and it actually can move about. I wonder if Andrew can touch their snout for us. Give us a little look. Oh, perfect. They have a nice little snout, and they do love the little snout touches. And their snout is pretty squishy, and it's kind of like a shovel. So they can actually put it in the sand and dig to find things like shellfish and snails and shrimp, and that's what they like to eat. But, you know, they are also very quick swimmers, so they can go after things like fish if they would like to. But because of their flat crushing teeth, if they catch a fish and they don't have a good hold, there's a good chance they won't be able to eat those animals. And if you're wondering about our stingray barbs, we do trim them here, and they do grow back, so we have to keep trimming them, but it gives us a good chance to make sure that our animals are nice and healthy. So not only do we have these 3 stingrays, but we do have more, but the rest of them are distracted at the bottom of our habitat. So I'm going to move the camera off Andrew for a second. See Ray over there in the corner? I'm going to see if I can point to it. Right there, there are bubbles coming up from the bottom. There's a diver in the water right now. And that diver is feeding the other stingrays in the habitat. So we have large southern stingrays. There's one up at the top right now, probably not eating today, or not today, probably not eating at our feeding right now because we have 3 feedings in this habitat a day. And there's another one right there. And so the diver is feeding the stingrays below, and that is distracting those ones down there while these ones are being fed, because spotted eagle rays like to steal the food of the other animals. I mentioned earlier that they are very intelligent animals, and they learned how to steal food from every other animal we feed in here. So they can just learn all of the different patterns and how to get the reward of food. Although we don't reward them with food, they just figured it out. They're one of the few animals that can pass the mirror test. So passing the mirror test means that you can recognize yourself in a mirror. And I know most of you can do that very easily, but some cats can't even do that. So it's a very intelligent animal. So other than these 3 spotted eagles, we have the southern, there's another one here, Cownose Rays, which look a little bit like the spotted eagle rays, but smaller. And they don't have the spots. And then there's one shark right there, but there are actually 5 bonnethead sharks. And then the other 2 stingrays, which is one species, they're both rough-tailed rays, they don't come up here because they like the bottom. They're naturally a deep diving stingray, and they are found at 200 meters below the sea surface sometimes. So they don't like coming up to the shallower areas. There's a shark coming around Andrew. The sharks really, really do love shrimp and squid, and those are the food that we're feeding the spotted eagle rays, so they're coming up to just smell the water. They were already fed this morning, so we don't have to worry about them. And they pretty much leave the divers alone. But Andrew does take care of these animals, so obviously they do recognize him a little bit more than our other divers. So these spotted eagle rays are getting their positive reinforcement. They're doing quite good today, so he will only give them food if they come to the pipe at the right angle so that they are learning what to do, and so that they're up here away from the diver during the dive show. Now, spotted eagle rays are actually one of my favorites just because they can launch themselves out of the water. Yep, and splash Andrew. They can launch themselves out of the water, and that's up to 6 feet in the air, depending on the size of the animal. Thankfully, at our habitat, they don't do that because we have this nice protective wall. And also, our habitats here are not as deep as the ocean gets, so they can't really get up to that speed. But if they're in the wild, they could definitely jump out of the water, and that's actually a way for them to get away from predators, which are mostly sharks. But not too much else likes to eat them because they're just really, really fast. And sometimes stingrays live in schools, so they're comfortable with living with each other, and a school of stingrays is called a fever. So some of our stingrays, not the spotted eagle rays, but the Cownose Rays, when they first got here, they wouldn't leave their fever, so they decided to separate a little bit later when they were more comfortable. And then if you're ever wondering how to help these animals in the wild, stingrays are often caught accidentally in fishing nets because fishing nets are sometimes left behind by fisher people. And also if they're in the water, they're trying to catch one type of fish and then they catch more than that one type of fish, and all those extra fish called bycatch just get thrown back into the ocean and they may not survive that ordeal. And some people think that's just other fish that you would think that would be used as food, but sometimes it's other animals that we don't use as food, and they don't always survive. So like stingrays, sharks, turtles, dolphins, and then the other fish, which is not really the best thing for them. And it's not really as sustainable for us to be eating those foods. So you can always look on the internet. There's an app called OceanWise in Canada and Sea Choice in the United States called SEA Choice. And those actually help out for what sort of animals that you can, if you're a fish eater, you can try to modify what you're eating and know where your food comes from to make sure that we are helping these animals out in the wild. And one of the easiest things you can always do is to spread the word and use your voice. So if you know something and you want to tell people, do that. Always use the internet in a safe way. But if you'd like to share information about these lovely animals, that's what you should do and make sure everyone knows, because you know what? You're the leaders of tomorrow and you can actually share your information, and adults listen to students. So make sure if you have an idea, you get it out there. Well, that's all I had to say. So if we want to open it up for any questions the students have.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you so much, Danielle and Alex.
Yeah, anytime.
All right, so I'm just going to go down the list here, guys. So let's see. How about our students in Algonquin, Illinois? Do you guys have any questions? Hi. The question was, sorry, can you repeat that one more time really loud? How did you capture them?
So how do we capture them? So some of our stingrays are actually not from the wild. As I mentioned before, the small spotted eagle ray is actually born at our other aquarium. But in order to catch stingrays, it's actually not as difficult as you think, because some stingrays are actually pretty friendly, but you can capture them from the wild by just using nets. And then we have to make sure that the animals fit certain guidelines to be in an aquarium setting. So they have to be the right gender and the right size so that we don't negatively impact the wild population. So it's nice to see these animals in a captive environment like at an aquarium. However, if you were to take too many out from the wild, then there's no point, because then the wild doesn't have the right animals that it needs to survive. So we still have to learn a lot about these animals. We still don't know much about the reproduction, and we also don't know if all of the spotted eagle rays are in one species group or in 4. So we're still trying to figure that sort of stuff out. But this does give us a good learning opportunity, not only us here at Ripley's Aquarium, but other aquariums in general and other research facilities. And then in order to get them here, they go on a truck, and then the truck leads them to an area where they go through quarantine to make sure whatever things they might have on the outside of them gets taken away, and so that it doesn't impact our pristine habitats here. And then they come here, and then we feed them lots of food and give them lots of touches, and then they get very happy here.
Awesome, great question. So I think we'll do 2 questions per classroom, and then if we have time, we'll come back again. So our students in Algonquin, Illinois, do you have one more question?
Not while I'm in the water, though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that one more time? Oh no. Okay, let's try one more time. Sorry.
How do the stingrays jump out of the water, and how big do they get?
How do the
great
stingrays?
question.
I think it was, how do the stingrays jump out of the water, and how big
Danielle,
do they get?
I think that your volume's down. 1 second. Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, so that was, how big do the stingrays get, and how do they jump out of the water? So each different species of stingray has a different maximum size. So our Cownose Rays, these ones, that's a pretty much full-grown one compared to the southern stingray there, that's also full-grown. So they have different species sizes, but spotted eagle rays, the ones we're talking about today, the largest one ever recorded was 3 meters from nose to tail and 9 meters across. So they get, 6 meters across, they're pretty big. But here they probably won't grow that big because you can see our whole habitat right here. They're also young, so we're not exactly certain how large they will get. And in order for a stingray to jump out of the water, they just swim really, really fast. And they're pretty comfortable with landing on, well, pretty much like a belly flop when they go back in the water, depending on the type of stingray. If you want to see that on the internet, there's a good BBC video called Mobula rays jumping or double rays jumping. And you can see some other species that jump to find mates, and you see them flip over and over again.
Wonderful. Great question, guys. Okay, let's see if Stanley's class in Petrolia, Ontario. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah. Where is their natural habitat, and are they endangered at all?
Okay, where's their natural habitat and are they endangered at all? So stingrays, they have a wide range of habitats, and the spotted eagle ray is actually found worldwide in the tropical habitat, but all of ours were, like the two that were caught in the wild were caught in Florida, so they're not too far away from where we are, so most of our animals are from the North America range. And these animals are actually in the category of near threatened and vulnerable, depending on how you divide their species up. So if they're just one species, they're doing quite a bit better than if they were actually 4 species all counted as one. So we still have to learn a little bit more, but their populations are pretty steady depending on where they are and how they're protected. But in areas where shark fin soup and other delicacies where these animals might be used for that, then they aren't doing as well.
Awesome, great question. Miss Stanley's class, do you have one more question before we move on?
Yep. Yeah. If their predators are sharks, then why are they in a tank with them?
It's a good question. If the predators are sharks, then why are they in a habitat with them? Well, firstly, the sharks that they live with are not babies of a hammerhead. They are Bonnethead sharks, and that's as large as they get. So the spotted eagle rays will get much larger than the sharks. And the big bullies in this habitat are the spotted eagle rays, because they like to bite the other animals sometimes, which is perfectly natural for them. But it's mainly because they like food, and they really want to steal food from the other animals. However, their natural predators are the hammerhead sharks, which are the larger sharks that we don't have in our aquarium. They are like 20 feet long when they're full grown. So they're humongous, and based on the size of this habitat, we can't have them. And those ones would naturally eat them, but just think about what you eat. Remember, you have to cut up the food to put it in your mouth, and that's how most sharks eat, or they can cut the food. And these animals are definitely not the prey of the sharks that we have in here. The sharks in here really, really like squid and shrimp. And by really, really like, that's why the one shark came by and hung out with Andrew, because he smelled the food and she just wanted to have that. There's another shark. So you can see how small they are compared to the stingrays.
Amazing. Okay, thanks so much, Miss Stanley's class. Mr. Thwaite's class. Let's see if I can get you in line. There we are. So St. Thomas.
There's Shaughnessy. Shaughnessy, what's your question?
What part of their bodies do they use to sting?
Get that?
You hear that, Danielle?
I can't hear that, sorry.
That was, which part of their bodies do they use to sting?
Oh, that was a great question. So their tails, a lot of people think the tail and the stinger are the same thing, and they are not. So on the smaller stingrays, the ones that look more like diamonds, like these 2 Cownose Rays, the stinger is on the top of their tail, right close to their body, which on ours you can't see unless you look really, really close, because we have trimmed them down, and Andrew's pointing to them. And then on these larger stingrays, because one of ours is over here, it's about a foot down their tail. And Andrew's going to point to it. Awesome. And we do continue to trim down the barbs on our stingrays because we have all these people coming to touch the stingrays. Andrew's in the water, and we do have to do procedures on our animals. So we need to keep them short. And it's kind of like having short fingernails. If you're short, you can't really use them, and it doesn't hurt at all to have them trimmed down. However, I mean, just like most other animals, they really don't like being in nets, but it is for the greater good, and it also gives us a chance to do checkups on them. So we do catch them probably every 4 to 6 months.
Awesome. Okay, Mr. Thwaite's class, one more question.
Here it comes.
Why do you like them so much?
The question was, why do I like them so much? And that's because stingrays are majestic animals. I really like them because they're slimy, and I'm a tactile person. And I like how they have this mucus layer on the outside of their body that protects them from scratches, and if they ever get bitten or hurt, that acts like a scab. So it's not hard, but it acts as a protection layer from the environment. But stingrays are amazing, beautiful animals, and they are quite intelligent, and all of our stingrays are hand-fed, so they're very friendly when it comes to people. And just like most of my other favorite animals, these animals can do some sneaky things, like this one over here. The southern stingrays can hide under the sand and surprise their prey, which a lot of my favorite animals are ambush predators like that. And these stingrays, the spotted eagle rays and the Cownose rays, have modified fins on their face that help them dig in the sand, which is awesome.
Amazing. Great question, guys. Okay, we're moving right along. I don't know. I think this is Mr. Melchin. He has a bunch of students in the gymnasium. You guys have a question?
Okay, what am I doing? I need help.
We can hear you. Guys,
okay. Okay, sorry. I don't need help. Not with that. Okay, we have one question. Go ahead. Go ahead, really loud.
They have lungs.
Did you hear that?
one more time.
Okay.
Do they have lungs?
Lungs. Do they have
lungs? Oh, no, stingrays don't have lungs. They have that other thing called gills. So gills are inside. You can't actually see their gills because they're inside their body. But if you ever come to an aquarium and you look at the bottom of a stingray, you can see their gill slits. And those are lines that they have on the bottom of their body, and that's how they breathe. And then on these stingrays, and the spotted eagle rays and the Cownose rays, you can see their spiracles. So they have holes. You can see it on this one really well. There's a hole on their head at the very back, and Andrew's showing us, that allows them to pump water in. And that acts like a nose, and the gills are on the inside, and that is how they are getting oxygen from the water. Because guess what? Stingrays also breathe oxygen. They just breathe it from the water.
Great question, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you guys have a second question, or should we come back?
Nope. I think all of ours were asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Mr. Jones's class.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you guys have a second question, or should we come back?
I think all of ours were asked.
Mr. Jones, I think that we've got a little bit on a delay here.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Mila, do you have
Mr. Jones, I think that we've got it. There you are. You guys have a question?
yes? Or
Yes, we can hear you.
I'd have to.
Okay, there we go. We can
You
hear
hear
you.
us?
Yes. Do you guys have a question?
Here, she has a question.
All right.
What is the tiniest stingray you've seen?
Oops, sorry, one more time, sweetie.
What is the tiniest stingray you've seen?
Tiniest stingray.
The tiniest stingray that we've seen. Well, the stingray adults, we have some freshwater stingrays that are not in this habitat, and they're pretty small. But baby stingrays are definitely the smallest ones that we see. Because our Cownose rays, these guys, the ones that don't have spots, they have babies. As Andrew's holding one. So when they have babies, so stingrays are pretty flat animals, and so when they're pregnant, they really look pregnant. And then the baby pops out, and the baby is just a miniature version of these ones. So we have a stuffed animal in our gift shop, and the stuffed animals are larger than the baby stingrays sometimes.
That's awesome. Great question. And Mr. Jones's class, was there one more question you guys had?
Nope, that's all we have. Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you. Okay, so Miss Whitcomb's class. You guys are in Anaheim, California. Do you guys have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. Could you ask it one more time? Nice and loud?
How long do they live?
Oh, how long
do they
stingrays
live?
live? So we know very little about how long spotted eagle rays live, because we don't know much about them in general, but thankfully we do have one that was born in captivity and has a birth date, so we'll know how long they live when, like, eventually in a long time from now, he is no longer here. But the Cownose rays, they usually have a maximum lifespan of 15 to 20 years. The southern stingrays is 20 to 25, and then the rough-tailed stingrays, which we also have, Our oldest one is close to 26, 27, and he was caught when he was close to 4 years old. So he's been in aquariums ever since that point. And so we know at least how old he is. But we're not exactly certain how long they'll live for. Usually stingrays and sharks live for about 30 years. And in a captive environment where they don't have to worry about predators or getting the right food, they usually live for a little bit longer than that because we do give them a good quality of life here.
Awesome question. Did you guys have a second question that you wanted to ask?
No, I think all of our questions were answered. Thank you.
Thank you guys. All right, so I think we have just a few minutes left. Let's go back to our students who were in Algonquin, Illinois. Did you have another question, a follow-up? Oh, sorry, one more time.
How long have you been doing your job?
Okay.
How long have I been doing my job? So I've been an educator here for almost 4 years. And Andrew, how long have you been working here? Coming up on 5 years. And if you're keeping track on how long the aquarium's been open, we celebrated our 5th birthday on Tuesday. So we are still a pretty young facility, and most of the people here haven't worked here more than 5 years. But Andrew and I are the ones who've been here the longest.
Awesome. Okay, Miss Stanley's class, do you guys have a final question?
Yeah. If a stingray stung you, how long would the pain go for?
Okay, when a stingray stings you, how long would the pain go for? So stingray barb pain, so it's specific for each different species of stingray, and the barbs are serrated, pointy structures, and the venom is not meant to kill, it's only meant to stun. So it's usually pretty okay if a person gets stung, and they usually get stung in their arms or their legs because they step on a stingray or they're interacting with the animal in a way that they are not comfortable with. So stingrays in general don't like using it, and it takes a long time to grow back, so they'd rather just swim away from a threat. But if you happen to get stung, the pain will probably last for, depending on where you got stung, it could be as long as a week, but it would probably be like a dull throb by the end of the first day. And you do have to get it surgically removed because the teeth on the stingray barb are backwards placed, kind of like a serrated knife, so it'll go in real easy, but getting it back out is just easier that a surgeon will take it out. But if you're worried about stingrays in their natural habitat, and you're walking around, you don't want to step on them, you just shuffle your feet, and they're really, really good at sensing their habitat, and then they will just swim away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Miss Stanley's class. And I think Mr. Thwaites, did you guys have a final question? I think everyone else had all their questions answered. All right, come on up, guys. You're off mute. Nice and loud.
How long do they sting?
How long do they sting?
Yes.
So they can sting their whole lives. So when the babies are born, they're born with their stinger or their barb. We trim it down when they're born here, and then the barb will continuously grow throughout their lifetime. And because stingrays don't really get into the need a retirement facility age, they continue to grow it throughout their whole lives, just like their teeth that they grow all the time and lose. So they'll always have the ability, and that's good for them. So some of them can have more than one. As I said, the spotted eagle rays can have, ours have 2, but they can actually have up to 4. So it really depends on the species of the animal. And it also depends on how much they're eating, how fast the barb does grow.
Wonderful questions, guys. Thank you so much for engaging with us. And thank you very much to Danielle and Alex at Ripley's Aquarium. We have just 1 minute left. So Danielle, Alex, is there anything that you want to say before we head out?
No, I'll just say thank you for visiting us here at the aquarium. Andrew and I had a lot of fun talking with you about the stingrays and showing you our beautiful spotted eagle rays, which are my favorite stingray. And I don't think Andrew keeps favorites because he works with them and he can't.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm going to turn on all the microphones so our classes can say goodbye. So thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.